You didn't mean to do it. That's the first thing to understand. Whatever happened between you and this other person, whatever shift occurred that left them rattled, quieter, suddenly different in how they move around you. You didn't plan it. You weren't running a strategy. You weren't executing some carefully rehearsed version of yourself designed to produce a specific effect. You were just becoming. And that becoming, those two specific things you started doing differently without even fully realizing it, cracked something open in someone else's world. They are shaken because of you. Not because you manipulated them, not because you performed something, but because something in you changed at a level deep enough that it registered in them like a frequency shift, like a signal they had been calibrated to receive suddenly changed its broadcast. And now they don't know what to do with the new transmission. This is what we're here to examine today. Not the psychology of why people get rattled, not a list of power moves. What we're actually here to examine is the physics of what happens when one person crosses a threshold and someone in their orbit hasn't. What happens at the boundary between two states of consciousness when they're forced into contact. What it means that you are the one who moved, and what that movement is actually telling you about where you are right now, about which side of a very specific gate you are standing on. Because here is what's true. The fact that someone else is shaken is not the story. It's the signal. It's pointing at something that happened in you first, something that crossed over, something that changed state. And that state change, that specific threshold you passed through without necessarily having a name for it, is what we're actually mapping today. You are not at the beginning of this. You're already through something. What you need now is to understand what you crossed, why it shook the world around you, and what it means that you can't go back to the version of yourself that didn't produce that effect. Let's start at the beginning. Not your beginning. The beginning of the physics. There is a concept in thermodynamics called a phase transition. You know it intuitively, even if you've never heard the term. Water sitting in a pot on a stove doesn't gradually become steam. It heats. It heats. It heats. Nothing visibly changes for a long time. And then, at a precise temperature, at exactly 100 degrees Celsius at sea level, the molecular structure reorganizes. The bonds shift. The substance crosses from one state of matter into another. Liquid becomes gas. Not gradually. At a threshold. At a crossing point. One moment it's water. The next, it's something that moves through the world completely differently. What you're experiencing right now, the fact that someone in your life is shaken, that they're looking at you differently, that something between you has shifted in a way neither of you can fully articulate. That is the social and psychological signature of a phase transition in you. You heated up. You heated up. you heated up. And then, at some precise moment, at some crossing point, you changed state. And now you move through the world differently. And the people around you can feel it, even when they can't name it. Here is something worth sitting with about that phase transition. The water at 99 degrees and the water at 100 degrees are not meaningfully different in temperature. 1 degree of difference. But one is still liquid, and the other is crossing into a completely different state of matter. The change is not proportional to the final increment of pressure. The change is the result of everything that came before that final increment. Every degree of heat that was absorbed and held without visible change. Every moment of pressure that seemed to produce nothing. All of it was preparation. All of it was necessary. And the person watching from outside saw nothing change, and then saw everything change, and had no framework for understanding why that last small thing produced such a total reorganization. This is what your crossing looks like from the outside. The person who is shaken watched you absorb pressure for a long time. They watched you stay in the same configuration. And then something shifted, something that from their vantage point looked small, and suddenly you were entirely different. They are trying to locate the cause in that last small thing. They are asking themselves what they said or did that produced this change in you. And they cannot find a sufficient cause, because the cause was not that last thing. The cause was everything. The cause was the entire accumulation. And they weren't watching the accumulation. They were watching the surface, which showed nothing until it showed everything. The two things you did, the two specific shifts we're going to examine closely today, were not random. They were the behavioral signature of a phase transition. They were what you do differently on the other side of a threshold. And the person who is shaken, they were calibrated to the old state. They built their relationship with you, their expectations of you, their sense of power relative to you, on the assumption that you would stay liquid, that you would remain in the phase they understood. And you didn't. If this phase transition is landing as something you've lived, there's something I want to offer you before we go further. Have you spent years shielding yourself from other people's energy, boundaries, releases, energy clearings, and still wake at 3 a.m., running someone else's anxiety? Those tools treat it as outside you. It's not. Your nervous system has adjusted to every room for so long, it forgot its baseline. The sealed timeline, a quantum guide to becoming untouchable by wrong frequencies, walks through the 5-step crossing, the adjusting pattern, the breaking point, the crossing itself, what stable feels like, and why old evidence shows up. Every tool you tried treated this as an outside problem. This one ends the adjusting pattern that made you a receiver in the first place. The longer you adjust, the harder it gets to come back to yourself. Open it tonight. It's in the pinned comment below. Now, let's name the two things that mark the other side of your crossing. So let's name the two things. Let's be precise about what they actually are, what they mean in terms of state change, and why they produce the specific effect of leaving someone shaken. The first thing is this: you stopped explaining yourself. Not dramatically, not as a statement, not as a declaration of independence or a power move. You just stopped. At some point, without a formal decision, you noticed that you were no longer reaching for justifications when someone questioned your choices. You noticed that the old reflex, the one that would have had you immediately producing a detailed account of your reasoning, your intentions, your feelings, your logic, so that the other person could evaluate it and either approve or disapprove, that reflex had gone quiet, and in its place was something different, a kind of settled stillness, an interior sense that your choices were yours and that the validity of your choices was not located in someone else's understanding of them. This sounds simple. It is not simple. To understand why this specific thing should someone else, you need to understand what was actually happening in the dynamic before it. When you explained yourself, when you offered justifications, you were doing something specific at the level of relational physics. You were submitting your reality to someone else's jurisdiction. You were, functionally, saying, "My sense of myself as valid is contingent on your assessment of my reasoning. I will present my case. You will evaluate it. If you find it acceptable, I am permitted to proceed. If you find it unacceptable, I will either defend it further or revise it." The locus of authority over your choices was located outside of you, in them, and they knew it, not necessarily consciously. But they knew it the way a hand knows where a familiar surface is. They had learned that when they expressed doubt or disapproval or confusion about your choices, you would respond by producing more explanation, more justification, more evidence of your reasonableness. And that dynamic, that pattern of you seeking their approval to validate your own reality, was the architecture of the relationship. It was load-bearing. It held things in a particular shape. When you stopped, the architecture changed. Suddenly, when they expressed doubt or disapproval, there was no flood of explanation coming. There was just you, standing in your choice, not particularly interested in convincing them of anything. And this is deeply disorienting for someone who has been calibrated to the old pattern, because the old pattern gave them a role. It gave them authority. It made them, functionally, the judge of your reality. And now, the judgeship has been vacated, and they don't know what to do with that. This is what shaking actually is, at the level of relational mechanics. It's not that they're impressed or intimidated, though those things may be present. It's that the structural role they occupied in your psychic world has disappeared. They used to be the court of appeal for your choices. Now, there is no court of appeal. There's just you, and your choices, and a quiet that doesn't seem to need anything from them. That quiet is devastating to someone who was using your need for approval as a source of their own sense of significance. Now, let's be precise about the physics of this. In quantum mechanics, there is a concept called the observer effect. At the quantum level, the act of observing a particle changes its state. The measurement itself is an intervention. Before measurement, the particle exists in superposition, a range of possible states held simultaneously. The moment it is observed, the wave function collapses. It becomes one specific thing. The observer participates in determining what it becomes. For years, you were allowing someone else to be the observer of your choices. And the observer effect was real. Their observation, their assessment, their judgment was collapsing your wave function. Their evaluation of your decisions was determining which version of yourself you allowed to become real. You were living in a state of perpetual superposition, never fully collapsing into a definite state, always waiting for their observation to determine what you were. When you stopped explaining yourself, you stopped submitting to the observation. You collapsed your own wave function. You became the observer of your own reality. And the moment you did that, the moment you took back the authority to determine your own state, they lost the ability to participate in your becoming. And they felt that loss. They felt it the way a person feels it when they reach for a door handle that's no longer there. The shaking is the sensation of finding empty air where they expected solid architecture. There is something else worth naming precisely here, because it goes deeper than the mechanics of approval. When you were explaining yourself constantly, you were not just seeking their approval in the moment. You were maintaining a particular story about who held authority over what was real. Every explanation you offered reinforced that story. Every justification you produced was a small act of submission to the idea that your inner life required external validation to be legitimate. And over time, through repetition, that story became structural. It became the invisible architecture that both of you were living inside. The story said, "This person's assessment of your choices matters more than your own." The story said, "Your inner knowing is provisional until confirmed." The story said, "The relationship is maintained by your willingness to be evaluated and found acceptable." When you stopped explaining, you didn't just change a behavior. You rejected the story. You stepped out of the architecture entirely. And the person who is shaken is not just disoriented by your new behavior. They are disoriented because the story they were living inside has suddenly lost one of its main characters. You were the one who needed to be approved. Without you in that role, the story doesn't function. And a story that doesn't function is not just inconvenient. It is destabilizing at the level of identity. Because they knew who they were inside that story. They were the approver, the authority, the one whose assessment determined your validity. And now that role is gone, and they have to figure out who they are without it. This is why the shaking runs deeper than discomfort. This is why it has the quality of something structural giving way. The second thing is related to the first, but it operates at a different level. The second thing you did is this. You started letting things be unresolved. Let me explain what I mean by that precisely, because this is not the same as being avoidant or checked out. This is something more specific and more radical. There is a particular kind of person, and you were this person, who cannot tolerate relational ambiguity. When there is tension, they move to resolve it. When there is a misunderstanding, they move to clarify it. When something is left unsaid, they say it. When an argument ends without full reconciliation, they reach back in to finish the reconciliation. When someone seems upset, they work to understand and address the upset. The drive is constant. The drive is toward resolution, toward closure, toward the elimination of unresolved states. This drive looks like care. It is partly care, but it is also something else. It is a profound intolerance for the discomfort of ambiguity. And that intolerance, that inability to sit with things unresolved, was another piece of the architecture. It meant that in any conflict or tension with you, the other person could simply wait. They could hold their position, stay in the tension, let the discomfort sit, and you would eventually move to resolve it. You would come to them. You would be the one who reached out. You would be the one who apologized, or clarified, or softened, or bridged, because you couldn't stand the unresolved state. And they knew this too. Again, not necessarily consciously, but they had learned the pattern. They had learned that in a standoff with you, they didn't need to move. You would move. Your discomfort with unresolved states meant that you were always the one who closed the distance. When you started letting things be unresolved, when you developed the capacity to sit with ambiguity, to let tension exist without immediately trying to dissolve it, to allow someone to be upset with you without rushing to fix it, something structural changed again. Now, in a standoff, you weren't moving. Now, the ambiguity that used to drive you to reach out was just sitting there, and you were sitting with it, and you weren't coming to resolve it. This is the second thing that shakes someone, because now they have to feel their own discomfort. Now, the tension that they used to be able to hand off to you by simply staying still and waiting for you to come resolve it, is sitting with them. And they don't have the same capacity to tolerate it that you've developed, because they never had to develop it. You were always the one who resolved things, so they never built the muscle. Now, the unresolved thing is sitting in the room between you, and you're not moving toward it. and they're feeling the full weight of it, and they don't know what to do. That is the second piece of the shaking. And here is what makes this second shift particularly significant in terms of what it reveals about the relationship's actual structure. When you were always the one resolving, you were doing something that looked like emotional generosity, but was actually something more complicated. You were, functionally, insulating the other person from the consequences of their own behavior. If they said something careless and created tension, you resolved it. If they pulled away and created distance, you closed it. If they were inconsistent or difficult or unclear, you did the interpretive work to make sense of it and smooth it over. You were a buffer between them and the natural consequences of how they showed up in the relationship. When you stopped being that buffer, those consequences arrived. For the first time, they had to sit with what their own behavior produced. The careless thing they said created tension, and the tension just stayed there. The distance they created remained. The inconsistency produced confusion that nobody rushed to resolve. And this, for someone who has never had to reckon with the downstream effects of their own relational behavior, is genuinely shocking. Not because they're bad people, but because they've been insulated from this particular kind of feedback for so long that encountering it feels like a sudden and inexplicable harshness in the world. They think something has gone wrong. What has actually happened is that something has gone right. The feedback loop that was always supposed to be present in the relationship has finally been restored. If this transmission is landing somewhere real for you, take a second to like it and subscribe, so more of this finds its way to you. Now, I want to go deeper than the mechanics, because understanding the mechanics is useful, but it's not the whole picture. The question underneath all of this is, what happened in you that produced these two changes? What was the actual threshold you crossed? What was the gate, and what was on the other side of it? Because these two things, stopping explaining yourself and developing the capacity to sit with unresolved states, these are not techniques you decided to implement. They are not habits you consciously cultivated. If you're being honest, you'll recognize that they emerged. They arose from something that changed at a deeper level. And that deeper level is what we need to look at. Let me tell you about a specific kind of threshold. Not a metaphorical one, a real one. The kind that has a precise interior signature, a specific feeling, a distinct before and after. There is a moment, and many of you know this moment, when you stop being primarily concerned with how you appear to someone else and become primarily concerned with what is actually true for you. It's not a decision exactly. It's more like a settling, like something that had been held in tension for a long time finally releases. And in that release, a kind of clarity arrives. Not the clarity of having figured something out, but the clarity of having stopped pretending you don't already know. Before that moment, your primary relational orientation was toward management, managing how you were perceived, managing the other person's emotional state, managing the gap between who you actually were and who you thought you needed to be in order to maintain the connection. Management is exhausting, and it produces a particular kind of distortion, because when you're managing, you're never quite fully present. You're always slightly behind the glass, slightly performing, slightly monitoring the effect you're having and adjusting accordingly. After that moment, the management drops. Not because you stopped caring about the relationship, but because you stopped being willing to distort yourself to maintain it. And this is the threshold. This is the gate between the self that manages and the self that simply is. The person who manages explains themselves constantly, because explanation is a management tool. It's a way of controlling how you're perceived, of ensuring the other person has the version of you that you want them to have, rather than whatever version they might construct on their own. When you stop managing, you stop needing to explain, not because you've become cold or indifferent, but because you've released the project of controlling their perception of you. You've accepted that their perception of you is theirs, not yours to manage. The person who manages cannot tolerate unresolved states, because unresolved states are management failures. They represent gaps in the controlled environment. When you stop managing, you can let things be unresolved, because you're no longer trying to control the environment. You're just living in it. This is the gate you crossed. The gate between managed self-presentation and actual self-possession. And here is what's important to understand about that crossing. It is irreversible. This is not a phase you're going through. This is not a mood. This is a state change. You cannot unknow what you now know about yourself. You cannot go back to the version of yourself that was willing to distort for approval, because that distortion is now visible to you in a way it wasn't before. You can see the mechanism, and once you can see the mechanism, you can't unsee it. The gate closed behind you. This is what makes the other person's shaking significant. They're not responding to a mood. They're responding to a permanent state change. And at some level, they can feel the permanence. That's part of what's so disorienting. It's not that you're different today. It's that you're different in a way that has the quality of finished, of settled, of not going back. I want to tell you about two people. Let's call them Mara and Declan. Mara and Declan had been in each other's lives for years, not romantically. They were close friends. The kind of close where you know each other's entire history, where you have shorthand for everything, where the relationship has its own weather patterns and its own unspoken rules, One of the unspoken rules was this: Mara was the one who kept things smooth. When there was tension between them, Mara resolved it. When Declan was upset, Mara worked to understand why and to address it. When Declan questioned Mara's choices, Mara explained, at length, with care, making sure Declan understood her reasoning, making sure he approved, making sure the approval was genuine and not just performed. This pattern had been in place for so long that neither of them thought of it as a pattern. It was just how things were. Declan, for his part, had no idea how much structural weight Mara was carrying. He wasn't a bad person. He wasn't consciously exploiting her. He had simply learned over years that the relational work would be done by Mara. That was his experience of how relationships functioned. Someone like Mara always did the work. He didn't examine this. He didn't need to. Then something happened to Mara. Not a dramatic event, not a crisis, something quieter. She had been in a period of significant interior change, the kind that doesn't have a clear narrative, but has a distinct texture, a gradual, accumulating sense that something in her life wasn't fitting anymore, that she had been shaped around other people's comfort for so long that she had lost track of her own shape, that she was, in some fundamental way, not quite real to herself. And then, at a specific moment that she later described as feeling like something clicking into place, she stopped. Not stopped the friendship, stopped the management. She noticed that she was about to explain herself to Declan about a decision she had made that he had questioned, and she just didn't. Not out of anger, not out of strategy. She just noticed that she didn't have the energy for it, and more than that, she noticed that she didn't believe it was necessary. Her decision was hers. Its validity was not located in Declan's assessment of it. She said something brief, something like, "I know you see it differently. I'm at peace with the decision." And then she didn't say anything more. Declan waited for the explanation. He waited for the elaboration. He waited for the flood of careful justification that would give him the opportunity to evaluate and approve. And it didn't come. Mara had moved on to talking about something else entirely. He didn't know what to do with that. He felt, he told her much later, like he had reached for a familiar piece of furniture and found empty space. He felt slightly off balance, slightly uncertain. Not angry exactly, just unmoored. Over the next few weeks, the pattern continued. When there was tension between them, Mara didn't rush to resolve it. She let it sit. She was present. She wasn't cold, but she wasn't doing the management work. And Declan found himself in an unfamiliar position. He was the one feeling the discomfort of unresolved things. He was the one sitting with the tension. And he didn't have the capacity for it that Mara had developed, because he had never needed to develop it. He started reaching out more. he started being the one to bridge. He started explaining himself, which he had almost never done before. He was, in a word, shaken. The entire gravitational system of the friendship had shifted, and he was trying to find his footing in the new configuration. What Mara had done was not calculated. She hadn't read a book about relational dynamics and decided to implement a strategy. She had simply crossed a threshold. She had moved from managed self-presentation to actual self-possession, and the friendship, which had been built on the old architecture, had to either rebuild itself on the new one or not survive. It rebuilt, but it took time, and it required Declan to do something he had never done in the friendship before. Show up as someone who was also doing the work. There is a detail about what happened between Mara and Declan in that rebuilding period that is worth examining closely, because it illustrates something specific about what threshold crossings actually demand from the people on both sides. Declan went through his own smaller version of a phase transition during those weeks. He had to confront something he had never examined, that he had been a passenger in the friendship, that the ease he had always experienced in the relationship was not the natural ease of two people who were well matched. It was the ease of someone who was being carried. And confronting that was genuinely uncomfortable for him. Not because Mara made him confront it. She didn't. She was simply no longer doing the carrying. But the absence of the carrying made the fact of it visible in a way it had never been before. He had to ask himself a question he had never asked. What do I actually contribute here? And the answer, at first, was not comfortable. He had contributed presence, history, affection, loyalty. But he had not contributed relational work. He had not contributed the effort of maintenance, the willingness to bridge, the capacity to sit with discomfort. And discovering this about himself was its own kind of gate, his own smaller threshold, his own moment of having to decide whether to stay on the side of the passenger or to cross into something more active. He crossed. Not perfectly, not without stumbling, but he crossed. And what emerged on the other side of both their crossings was a friendship that neither of them had experienced before. Not the comfortable, smooth, Mara-maintained friendship of the previous years. Something rougher and more honest and more genuinely mutual. Something that could hold difficulty without Mara having to dissolve it. Something that could survive Declan's imperfections without Mara having to manage around them. This is what threshold crossings do to relationships. They force a renegotiation. They require the other person to either rise to meet the new version of you, or to reveal that what they wanted was not you, but the version of you that was convenient for them. The shaking is the renegotiation beginning. I want to pause here and ask you something directly. Have you crossed a point of no return like this? A moment when everything shifted at once, when you stepped through something and knew immediately that you couldn't step back? Tell me about it in the comments. I want to know what that crossing felt like for you, and what it cost you, and what it gave you. Now, I want to address something that might be present for you as you listen to this. A kind of discomfort, a question that sounds something like, am I being cruel? Is this coldness dressed up as growth? Is the fact that someone is shaken because of me something I should feel good about, or something I should examine? This is an important question, and it deserves a precise answer. There is a difference between the shaking that comes from someone losing access to your distorted self, and the shaking that comes from someone being genuinely hurt by indifference or cruelty. These are not the same thing, and the distinction matters. When you stop explaining yourself, you are not withholding from someone who deserves your transparency. You are withdrawing the performance of seeking their approval. These are different. Genuine transparency, the kind that comes from wanting to be truly known, is still available to you. What you've stopped doing is the anxious justification that was never really about transparency at all. It was about approval seeking, dressed as communication. When you let things be unresolved, you are not abandoning someone who needs you. You are refusing to do all the relational work for both of you. You are allowing the discomfort of unresolved things to be shared rather than carried entirely by you. This is not cruelty. This is, in fact, more honest. Because when you were the one always resolving things, you were creating a false impression that the relationship was in better shape than it was. The unresolved things were still there. You were just burying them under your management work. The shaking that comes from someone encountering your actual self, after years of encountering your managed self, is not harm. It is, in a strange way, a gift, because it gives them the opportunity to meet you, the real you, and to decide if they want to be in relationship with that person. Some people, when they meet the real you, will rise. They'll discover that they actually prefer this version, that the managed version was exhausting for them too, in ways they hadn't examined. That a relationship with someone who possesses themselves is more interesting and more nourishing than a relationship with someone who is always trying to manage everything smooth. Others will not rise. They will find that what they wanted was the managed version, the one that explained and justified and resolved and smoothed. And when that version is gone, they'll discover that what they had wasn't really a relationship with you. It was a relationship with your management of them. And that's a painful discovery, but it's an honest one. And honest discoveries, even painful ones, are gates. They are crossings. They are the end of one thing and the beginning of something that can actually be real. Let's go deeper into the physics now, because there's something specific here that I want you to understand about why the timing of this matters. why this is happening now, in this period of your life, and not earlier. In physics, there is a concept called hysteresis. It describes the behavior of a system that doesn't immediately respond to changes in its environment. A ferromagnetic material, for example, doesn't instantly realign its magnetic field when an external magnetic field is applied. There's a lag. The system resists the change for a while, continues in its previous state even as the conditions around it shift, and then, at a certain threshold of applied force, it snaps into the new alignment. Rapidly, completely. Your life has hysteresis. The conditions that were pushing you toward this threshold, the accumulating evidence that the managed self was costing you too much, that the approval seeking was producing diminishing returns, that the constant resolution work was leaving you depleted. Those conditions were building for a long time before you crossed the threshold. You were in the lag phase. The conditions had changed. The force was being applied, but the system was still holding the old configuration. And then the snap. The moment of crossing. The rapid, complete realignment. What makes this feel sudden to the people around you is precisely this hysteresis effect. From their perspective, you changed quickly. You were one way, and then you were another way, and the change seemed to come out of nowhere. But from the inside, you know that it didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of years of accumulating pressure that finally reached the threshold. The snap was sudden. The preparation was long. There is something important to understand about what you were doing during the lag phase, during all those years of absorbing pressure without visible change. You were not failing to cross. You were not being weak or stuck or unable to grow. You were doing something that the physics of hysteresis actually requires. You were building the internal charge that the crossing would eventually need. Every moment you sat with the discomfort of the managed self and didn't immediately abandon it. Every moment you felt the cost of the explaining and the resolving and kept going anyway. Every moment you noticed that something wasn't fitting and filed the noticing away without yet acting on it. All of that was accumulation. All of that was necessary. The crossing could not have happened without the lag. The snap required everything that came before it. This is why there is no version of this story in which you should have crossed sooner. You crossed when the charge was sufficient, when the pressure had accumulated to the precise threshold, when the system had held the old configuration for exactly as long as it could before the new alignment became inevitable. The timing was not a failure of will. It was physics. This is why the person who is shaken is so disoriented. They didn't see the preparation. They only saw the snap, and the snap looks, from the outside, like a decision. Like you decided to be different, and they're trying to figure out what caused the decision, what they said, or did or didn't do? What changed in their behavior that produced this change in yours? And they can't find it because the cause wasn't in their behavior. The cause was in the long, slow accumulation of pressure in you that finally reached the threshold. They are looking for a cause in the wrong place. And that disorientation, that inability to locate the cause of the change, is part of what makes the shaking so thorough. It's not just that you're different, it's that they can't figure out why. And that mystery is destabilizing in a way that a clear cause wouldn't be. Now, I want to talk about something that is perhaps the most important piece of all of this. Something that the shaking is actually pointing at, beyond the relational dynamics, beyond the physics of state change. The fact that someone is shaken by who you are now is evidence of something specific. That who you are now is real in a way that who you were before was not. Let me be precise about what I mean. When you were managing yourself, when you were explaining and justifying and smoothing and resolving, you were producing a version of yourself that was designed to be acceptable, designed to not disturb, designed to fit within the frame of what the other person could comfortably receive. And that version, precisely because it was designed to be comfortable, had a certain quality of unreality. It wasn't quite you. It was you processed for consumption. And people can feel this, even when they can't name it. A managed self has a slightly hollow quality. It's smooth in a way that real things aren't quite smooth. It fits a little too well. It requires a little too much. The real self is different. The real self has edges. It has weight. It takes up space in a way that can't be fully anticipated or managed. It makes decisions that don't come with explanations attached. It sits with things unresolved in a way that creates pressure. It is, in a word, present. And presence, real presence, is something that the nervous system registers as significant, as real, as something that must be reckoned with. When someone is shaken by you, they are responding to your presence, to your realness, to the weight and edge and genuine occupancy of you in the space. And this is not a small thing. This is, in fact, the thing. This is what you were trying to produce all along with the management. Unsuccessfully. You were trying to matter. You were trying to be significant. You were trying to be real in someone else's world. And the management, the explaining and justifying and resolving, was your attempt to produce that significance by being acceptable. But significance doesn't come from being acceptable. It comes from being real, and real things shake the people who encounter them. Not because they're trying to, but because reality has weight. And weight moves things. You stopped trying to be acceptable, and you became real. And the shaking is the evidence. And I want to ask you something here, in the middle of this. Think about the edge you're standing at right now. Whatever threshold is live in your life. Is there something you've been circling? Something you already know, but haven't yet let yourself fully cross into? Leave it in the comments if you want to name it. Sometimes naming it is the first step through. I want to give you a practice now. Something specific to this threshold, to this particular crossing. Not a generic visualization. Something that belongs to exactly where you are. Find a moment of quiet. Not necessarily silence, but interior quiet. A moment where you're not actively managing anything, where you're not in the middle of a conversation or a task that requires your attention to be outward. Just a few minutes where you can turn inward. I want you to locate the feeling of the old management. Not think about it abstractly. Actually feel it in your body. The feeling of being about to explain yourself. The slight forward lean of it. The gathering of justifications. The monitoring of the other person's expression to see if the explanation is landing. The slight breathlessness of it. The sense of your own reality being held in suspension while you wait for their assessment. Find that feeling. You know it. It's very specific. It has a texture. Sit with it for a moment. Not to judge it, just to feel it clearly. Now I want you to feel the alternative. Not the absence of the management, but what's actually there when the management drops. The feeling of standing in your own choice without needing it assessed. The feeling of your reality being located in you, not in someone else's evaluation of you. The feeling of your weight, your actual weight. The gravity of you, present and not performing. This is not a feeling of coldness. It's not a feeling of not caring. It's a feeling of being, in some fundamental sense, at home. At home in yourself. At home in your choices. At home in the unresolved things. Not because you don't want them resolved, but because their resolution is not the condition of your peace. Stay with that feeling for a moment. Let it be specific. Let it have a texture and a location in your body. This is the feeling of the other side of the gate. This is the feeling of the state you've crossed into. Now I want you to bring to mind the person who is shaken. Not to think about them strategically, just to hold them in your awareness while you're in this feeling. Notice what it's like to think about them from this place. Notice that you can hold them with care and warmth without needing to manage their experience of you. Notice that their shaking is not your emergency. Notice that you can want things to be good between you, can genuinely care about them, while also not being willing to return to the managed version of yourself to make things more comfortable for them. This is what it means to be on the other side of this gate. You didn't stop caring. You stopped distorting. And those are not the same thing. Stay in that feeling for as long as it's useful. Let it settle. Let it become familiar. because the more familiar it becomes, the more it becomes your default. And the more it becomes your default, the more permanent the crossing is. There is one more layer to this practice that I want to add, because the practice has a second part that most people skip. And the second part is the harder one. After you've held the person who is shaken in your awareness from the place of self-possession, I want you to notice what you want to do, not what you think you should do, what the pull is. Because for most people who have crossed this threshold recently, there is still a pull, a residual pull toward the old management. Not as strong as it was, but present. The pull to soften the explanation just a little, to reach out and smooth the tension just this once, to reassure them that you're still the same person they knew, that nothing has really changed, that everything is fine. Notice that pull. Feel it clearly. And then notice that you don't have to follow it. Not because the pull is wrong or bad. It's not. It's the echo of a very long habit. A habit that served a real function for a long time. But notice that you can feel the pull and stay where you are. That you can acknowledge the echo without becoming the old pattern again. This is the specific practice for this threshold. Feeling the pull toward management and choosing, clearly and without drama, to remain in self-possession. Not once. Every time the pull arises, every time the old reflex surfaces, every time the other person's shaking produces in you the old impulse to smooth and explain and resolve. Feel it. Acknowledge it. Stay where you are. Over time, the pull diminishes. Not because you've suppressed it, but because the new state becomes more familiar than the old one. Because self-possession becomes the baseline rather than the achievement. Because staying in yourself stops requiring effort and starts being simply where you are. That is the full practice, both parts of it. Now let's talk about what actually changes on the other side. Not in the other person, in you. The first thing that changes is your relationship to your own decisions. Before the crossing, every significant decision you made had a shadow attached to it. The shadow was the question of how it would be received. What would this person think? Would they approve? Could you defend it if questioned? Would the explanation hold up under scrutiny? This shadow didn't prevent you from making decisions, but it colored them. It added a layer of anxiety. It meant that even when you made the right decision for yourself, you couldn't fully inhabit it, because part of you was always waiting for the assessment. After the crossing, the shadow lifts. Not because other people stop having opinions. They don't. Not because you stop caring about other people's perspectives. You don't. But because the validity of your decision is no longer contingent on their assessment. You can hear their perspective as information, as something potentially useful, without it being the court of final appeal. And this changes the texture of your decision-making completely. Decisions become cleaner. They become more yours. They become something you can actually inhabit, rather than something you're always slightly defending. The second thing that changes is your relationship to conflict. Before the crossing, conflict was a threat, because conflict meant unresolved states, and unresolved states were intolerable, and the intolerance drove you into a particular posture, the posture of the one who resolves, always reaching, always bridging, always closing the gap. And this posture, while it produced a lot of smooth surfaces, also produced a lot of resentment, because you were always the one doing the work. And the resentment was always there, underneath the smooth surface, building. After the crossing, conflict becomes information. Not pleasant, not sought out, but not a threat. You can sit with it. You can let it exist without immediately trying to dissolve it. And this changes the dynamic of every relationship you're in, because suddenly the work is shared. The discomfort of unresolved things is shared. And shared discomfort, interestingly, produces faster and more genuine resolution than one-sided resolution work ever did. Because when both people are sitting with the discomfort, both people are motivated to actually address the underlying issue, rather than just smooth the surface. The third thing that changes is harder to name, but perhaps most important. It's something like you become interesting to yourself. This sounds like a small thing. It isn't. When you were managing yourself, when you were constantly processing yourself for consumption, you were always slightly behind the glass. You were always slightly at a remove from your own experience, observing it and managing it and shaping it for presentation. And this remove, this constant self-management, made your own inner life feel slightly thin, slightly processed. You knew what you thought and felt, but it always had a slightly rehearsed quality, because you were always thinking about how to present it. When the management drops, you encounter yourself more directly. Your thoughts and feelings arrive less processed. They're raw, sometimes more surprising, sometimes more uncomfortable. But they're yours in a way that processed thoughts and feelings aren't quite yours. And this directness, this rawness, makes your own inner life interesting. You start to find yourself genuinely curious about what you think and feel, because you're not already performing it before it fully arrives. This is one of the less discussed gifts of threshold crossing. Not just what changes in your relationships, what changes in your relationship to yourself. The self that emerges on the other side of this gate is more interesting to inhabit, more genuinely yours, more alive in the specific sense of being unmanaged, unprocessed, actually present to its own experience. There is a fourth change that belongs here, one that is quieter than the others, but that compounds over time in a way that eventually becomes the most significant of all. It is this: you start to trust your own perceptions. Before the crossing, your perceptions were always slightly suspect to you, because you had spent so long submitting them to external assessment. So long presenting your sense of things and waiting to see if it would be confirmed or corrected. So long allowing someone else's evaluation to be the final word on what was real. And this habit, this constant outsourcing of perceptual authority, had eroded your confidence in your own direct experience. You would notice something, feel something, know something, and then immediately wonder if you were right, whether you were reading it correctly, whether your perception was valid or distorted, or missing something that the other person's more authoritative view would supply. After the crossing, that erosion reverses, slowly at first, then with increasing momentum. You notice something, and you let the noticing be real before you submit it to review. You feel something, and you let the feeling have authority before you check whether someone else would confirm it. You know something, and you let the knowing stand. This is not the same as becoming closed to other perspectives. It is the very different thing of having a grounded place to stand when you consider other perspectives, of being able to take in information without being destabilized by it, because your own perceptual ground is solid enough to receive new information without collapsing. This is what self-possession actually means at the level of epistemology. Not certainty, not infallibility, but a baseline of trust in your own direct experience that allows you to function from the inside out rather than from the outside in. Let me address something that might be present for you now. A kind of grief. Because if you're honest,